climate change hypocrites, and 9 more things to be angry about. What about that Greta Thunberg? She lives in a house that uses electricity and probably gas. David Attenborough, he swans around the world, secretly filming unsuspecting wildlife having sex. And that Leonardo DiCaprio, he clearly doesn't give a toss about the environment. Otherwise, he wouldn't have that huge yacht in The Wolf of Wall Street. Although he did pull it around a bit with the Reverend. How dare they try and persuade me to do my part to help save the planet that we all share? I mean, I might listen to them if they lived in caves. We all know someone, particularly online, that actually shares these kinds of views. But the truth is, nobody is going to listen to someone who lives in a cave. It is actually possible to care about the environment and to not be perfect. Even to drive your kids to school in an SUV, to fly too much, to eat meat, to drink milk, and indeed to have a large personal carbon footprint. Nobody wants anybody to live in a cave. In fact, that is exactly what most environmentalists are trying to avoid. Reducing your carbon footprint is not like being a recovering alcoholic or starting a fad diet that you're going to give up in 3 weeks' time. It is a sustainable lifestyle change, and it is a journey in incremental steps. If someone buys 1 less bottle of water a month, that is an incremental step. If someone takes 1 less flight a year, that is an incremental step. If someone cuts down on their consumption of avocados, that is an incremental step. We are all hypocrites, but those people trying to break the habits of a lifetime, habits that 10 or even 5 years ago we all thought were normal and harmless, deserve to be listened to. They deserve encouragement and not to be vilified because they still have Amazon Prime. More on Amazon in a moment. But in the meantime, we don't have to live in caves to be doing our part, to be looking out for our children's future. And if we were, nobody would listen to us. Nobody would want to listen to us. And nobody would want to listen to you. So don't move into a cave. So anyway, if you are new to my channel, I don't live in a cave. And this is my 70th video. And it's a quick rundown of the last 9 videos in season 7. And there's links to each of those in the description below. So that for any that actually pique your interest, you can watch the entire thing by clicking in the link below. Or perhaps you don't have time to watch anything just now, in which case, why not subscribe to my channel, scratch the like button, and check back later. So let's start with the 12 Nays of Christmas, where I offer 12 things you can do or not do to enjoy a more sustainable Christmas. Here's a quick clip. Amazon, I know it's convenient. I know it's easy to return. I know it's often cheaper, but when it comes to being environmentally friendly, Amazon are pretty much at the very bottom of the Christmas tree. And I don't mean that in a good way. Seriously, if you can buy something locally, it is not only better for the environment, but it actually puts money straight back into the local economy without much danger of financing some clown to fly into space for 10 minutes with a carbon cost of several lifetimes of ordinary folk like you and I. So second up, to beef or not to beef. There really is no question. You don't need to be ethically vegan to understand that our growing appetite for beef and dairy is unsustainable on our finite planet. Here's a clip. I think we all hold on to this vaguely romantic notion of Daisy the cow happily trotting around the field, chewing on a daisy with a cowbell, obviously, then being willingly and lovingly milked in the corner of the field by a smiling, buxom wench each morning, then let back to amble happily around the field until finally Daisy becomes too old to give milk, and then sadly she needs to be put down, at which point she is humanely killed with the same wench that has milked her for the last 18 years, nuzzling her, crying, whispering soothingly into her ear until her last breath. Then, of course, we know the rest. In order to eat Daisy, we kind of disassociate the ribeye steak, the rump steak, sirloin steak, cheeseburger, Sunday roast, spaghetti bolognese, sausages or piece of brisket with Daisy the cow, and she becomes essentially beef. Now, if you think that's hard, the reality today is very, very different from this storybook view, to the point where the huge scale of industrial farming of these sentient beings is now threatening the very environment and life support. Season 7, Video 3, 12 New Year's resolutions for a sustainable future. You don't need to wait for the new year before making these changes. But don't wait too long. We are running out of time. Here's a clip. So here we are, 12 New Year's resolutions for 2022 to help you prolong our life support system on planet Earth. And that might sound alarmist, but even more alarmist is that this list would have been the same last year, and it will be the same next year, and the year after that, and the year after that, right up until the point when in around 6 to 7 years' time, by current estimates, that it becomes too late to do these things because runaway climate breakdown will have already become irreversible. But anyway, let's not talk glumly about who killed who, the end of civilization as we know it, the end of days. I'll actually be covering that next week when I'll be talking about climate breakdown deniers. But this week, let's strike a more cheerful note as I list 12 things you can still do to slow or even reverse our journey into the abyss. Video 4, Climate Breakdown Deniers. We are all being manipulated by the media and by self-serving governments. So is it any wonder that there are still people out there, the vocal minority, who still believe that climate breakdown isn't real? Here's a clip. If this was real, why aren't politicians doing anything about it? I think I covered this in my opening statement, but democracy is broken. I'm not calling here for anarchy or communism. Democracy is flawed, but it is still the best we have got. What I'm doing is calling on you to recognise that we are being manipulated by short-term, self-interested, populist politicians who live in a world that we will never inhabit, a world that most of us don't have any concept of. Yet we expect these people earning 5 times more salary than the average person and still taking on second jobs as advisors to the fossil fuel industry, the meat industry, the water industry, the plastic and car industry to act in our best interest. When the shit hits the fan, those bastards won't be at the coalface with the rest of us. They won't be in inflatable boats with the rest of us. They will have already moved to higher ground, to a temperate climate like doomsday preppers with the right connection and a bank balance. Season 7, Video 5, How to be an Ethical Consumer. This is basically an unpaid, unendorsed, possibly even unliked advert for Ethical Consumer magazine that has become my shopping bible over the past 2 to 3 years. Here's a clip. Most of us are oblivious, but most of us actually have our homes full of products that exploit children, employ slave labour, that avoid taxes that the rest of us have to pay, that burn virgin forests, that pump sewage and poisons into our rivers and seas, and CO2 into the atmosphere, that already kills over 4 million people each year. Wouldn't you like to know who those companies are, whose products fill your cupboards, your fridges, your bathrooms and your kitchens, as well as the purveyors of fast fashion that at affordable prices make you feel $1 million when you go out on a Saturday night? Or maybe in the name of style, price or just convenience, you would rather not know. The question is, are you an ethical consumer? Or Do you even want to be an ethical consumer? If you do, this video is for you. Today, I'm going to be talking about Ethical Consumer Magazine and why anyone who cares about the environment, workers' rights, slave labour, child labour, animal cruelty, or fair taxes for all above price, convenience and celebrity endorsement should subscribe to this online magazine and website. Season 7, Video 6, Avocados and why you should choke on your next mouthful of guacamole, where I explain why ethically avocados and cocaine are pretty much as bad as each other. Here is a quick clip. I read an article earlier this year. It was a statement from a UK government minister. It could have been Sadiq Khan or Priti Patel, talking about the rise in middle class at dinner party cocaine use. Not sure why I didn't get the memo, perhaps I need new friends. Anyway, the point of the article, apart from pointing out to most people, like me, that we're missing out apparently on some really cracking parties, was that the real reason that we should not be calling our drug dealers when we book our Waitrose deliveries is not because it's bad for us, but because it fuels exploitation, displacement of communities, destruction of habitats, and lawlessness all along the supply chain. Cocaine use is not a victimless crime, and neither is our unsustainable appetite for avocados. Today, I'm going to explain why corporate greed, drug cartels, yes, the same ones involved in cocaine, extreme and worsening drought conditions, corruption and water theft should leave you choking on your next mouthful of guacamole. Season 7, Video 7, the war in Ukraine. Years in the planning and only made possible by our continued reliance on fossil fuels. If only Putin was an environmentalist and not a power-hungry despot. Anyway, here's a clip. We are being held to ransom with fossil fuels, the same fossil fuels that we have had years with a bit of planning to wean ourselves away from. The same fossil fuels that we have known since the 1970s are actually killing the fucking planet. You couldn't make this shit up. No, Putin is not a genius, but he has clearly been planning this for years, investing, planning and thinking ahead. If only he was an environmentalist and not a power-hungry despot. If only he cared about humanity and not empire building. Why have our leaders not had a vision beyond their own short term in office, to think ahead, to plan ahead, and to invest in clean, renewable energy? How could they not see this coming? How could we not see this coming? We have and continue to be blind to the suffering of millions as our overprivileged Western lifestyles are heating up the planet and are already forcing entire communities in places we don't really care about, like Afghanistan, Bangladesh, the Philippines, Haiti, Senegal, into poverty, starvation, conflict, drought, and for millions to be displaced as climate refugees. Look, the sheer horror of the war in Ukraine that we can relate to so much better as we see homes and cities that look like ours, people that look like us, families that look like ours, a Western way of life that we can relate to are displaced, bombed and destroyed. The scale of the humanitarian cost is almost impossible to comprehend, to bear, to take in as we watch this unfold on our televisions, mobile phones and computers. Season 7, Video 8, Isolation, but no man is an island. Every tree that falls or is cut down in a forest, whether there is anybody there to hear it or not, is another nail in the coffin of humanity, and we should all be making a noise. Here's a clip with me in my dressing gown. Despite what Paul Simon may say about it, none of us are an island. And what someone did in a lab, cave or wet market in Wuhan, 5,500 miles away from me, has this week, over 2 years later, left me largely incapacitated. And I am one of the lucky ones. We are all connected. If a tree falls in the forest and there is no one there to hear it, does it still make a sound? If a starving child dies in Bangladesh due to man-made flooding, having destroyed her home and her family's crops through global warming, does it still happen if nobody from the developed world is there to hear her scream? To hear her mother's pain, to witness her father's helplessness? If our first world privilege is heating up parts of the planet so that millions of people are already being displaced through climate breakdown on the other side of the world, is this really happening if our nightly news is not reporting it? Look, I'm sorry, this is more a thought for the day than my normal researched videos, but the war in Ukraine, the subject of last week's video, which you can see here, and the sort of mind-blowing butterfly effect, or butterfly effect if you like, of someone in Wuhan deciding to have sex with a bat or wherever it happened over 2 years ago, resulting in me contracting a virus and being laid up for a week 5,500 miles away is pretty amazing. Anyway, both of these things has made me consider the effect that our everyday simple life choices have on others. My discomfort of being stuck at home for 6 days is nothing, I know, compared to the 6 million people who've actually died worldwide from COVID-19 over the last 2 years. But that, again, that is nothing compared to the estimated 10 million people who have died due to climate breakdown in the same period, and to the millions more who have been displaced and the millions more who will suffer in the years and decades to come. We would like to think that Wuhan has taught us something, and that we will not make the same mistake that we have made before. But are we ourselves prepared to admit to the mistakes we are making with our overprivileged lifestyle in our everyday lives and make changes so that our children and our children's children can actually have a life? This is real shit that is really happening. 10 million people really have died due to climate breakdown over the last 2 years. And it's not somebody else's problem or somebody else's fault. It's our fault. We have to change our lifestyles. Every tree that falls in a forest is another nail in the coffin of humanity, and we should all be making a noise. Season 7, Video 9, Heatwaves. When is a heatwave not a heatwave? An extraordinary tale of the UK's approach to climate change in action. What is your government doing about climate change? Here's a clip. UK climate change in action. There's a link in the description below to the UK Met Office website with the press release entitled UK Climate Change in Action, where the action is not to suggest that we stop burning fossil fuels, stop driving our children to school in our SUVs, or making unnecessary journeys in our car, or to move towards public transport, to walk more, not to move towards a more plant-based diet, not to fly less, or to stop using single-use plastic, or stop buying shit that we don't need. No, none of these things. Their climate action, their climate change action is to change what constitutes a heat wave. I kid you not. Thank you. Thank you for watching this exciting compendium of Series 7 of Why Aren't People Angry About This? And if this has left you angry, upset, distraught, happy, elated, disturbed, or just compelled to see more, why not subscribe to my channel and hit the little notification bell so that I can disturb you every time I put out a new video with a that way you won't need to miss a thing. But if you have your own thoughts on anything you have seen today, please do let me have them by commenting below. I read all of your messages, even the batshit crazy ones. But before you go, please do scratch the like button and share this video. Doing all or any of these things really does help me spread the word and hopefully affect positive change. And if those 9 videos aren't enough for you, you might actually like this one, or even this one.